Have you ever came across those times to where you reminisce about something that either happened in the past, the present, or the future, yada yada yada? And a lot of people have always said that whatever happens in the past, let's bygones be bygones. But then there also comes a time and a place to where if you try to forget about what happened in the past, it will come back and sincerely haunt you one day, whether it's emotionally, physically, or mentally. But a part of me had to reminisce about a lot of things that happened back when I first discovered my first social media, the ups and the downs of the situation, and where that's currently leading me up to this very day. So I'm gonna tell everybody a little story about what happened during my years where I met mostly everybody I encounter on the internet nowadays, and a lot of things around here. Please take note that I am not born to be a saint. Nobody on this planet is a saint nor perfect. We're all human who tend to do crazy, bizarre actions. Some of them are willing to own up to it, some of them are not. But here goes nothing. When I first discovered my first ever social media, I was a preteen, or maybe like practically going to be a teenager or something like that. I'm not sure exactly whether I was 12 or 11 when I first started my social media encounter, but that's not the point here. I discovered this website called Google Plus, or a social media app called Google Plus, and in case you don't know what Google Plus is or was, it was a socializing account website ordeal. They had two different versions, used to. They had the personal version to where you can go around, do whatever that you want to do as long as you follow the rules and guidelines. And then you got the business side, which is more for professionals. So, in this entire situation, I was not actually aware that there are rules and guidelines to these things. So, when I first made my first social media account, I was not actually aware of what I was doing at the time, especially since the fact that I was a little too young to even have social media in general. Because most of these days, you have to be at least 13 years or older in order to use social media, and also getting permission from your parents. So when I first encountered Google Plus and decided to take a good look at it, Google Plus became my first ever official social media situation because they have managed to gain my attention, especially since the fact that because the fact I love Sonic, I have found out that there are actual Sonic communities that I actually felt welcome in. And even though that a lot of people I have met there got me motivated into doing things so much, there also comes a time and a place where too much motivation could play a huge, huge role in a life of someone else, including myself. And what I mean by that is that I have encountered so many people who tend to be a bunch of trolls and stuff like that. And then there are those who are just absolutely a-holes to other people. Such as number one, the recoloring situation. Now, I was still getting used to the internet. So I honestly do not expect myself to honestly believe in these types of things. But after a while, it hit me. So you know like how when you go on Google, you search out random images, you set it as your account profile, picture, and stuff like that, right? So doing things like these can it doesn't really come to your head when you think about it. But then when you find out sometime after that you were basically using people's artwork as your profile pictures and stuff like that, that is when you have to realize that you're playing a little bit of a risky situation here. Because most artworks are trademarked, meaning that they're copyrighted by somebody else. They are copyrighted and they are not to be used unless you get permission from the creator themselves, which I personally was not aware of back then. Because back in the day, people would usually make hate communities or go around basically picking on people because they were doing something that was absolutely illegal. Yet alone claiming that was their own character or something like that, which is something I actually used to do some time before. but I was not really thinking straight at the time. Some people actually did think straight, and they chose to be ignorant about it. Even when people tried to help them out, they still chose to do the wrong thing. And upon finding out that I myself was doing the wrong thing by recoloring over someone else's art pieces, that's when I realized that I wanted to feel ashamed of myself for doing that. Because what if they found out that I did that to their artwork? Then I might end up be facing a lawsuit or being sued for art theft and plagiarism. So thankfully, after a while, especially when I looked into my archive, I took those photos that I have drawn over completely down. And then that's when I have came to the introduction that these are called Sonic fan characters, and these are people's own creations. So, of course, I was still not thinking straight at the time, but then a lot of people have got me motivated into making my own fan character. And what I mean by this, think of it as how, like, there's a creation that's sitting right there in front of your face and you're willing to use it. So, some people have managed to help me into making my own fan characters, stuff like that. I have relied on these things called sprites, which is basically pixel art, in order to motivate me into being able to make my own character. And then there are some drawing tutorials on how to actually draw your own fan character. So, when I first started making my own fan character, looked back at my art years later and found out that it looks utterly disgusting because I was basically using Microsoft Paint. And because of the fact that I did not understand the properties and the physics on how to actually draw things around here, I looked back at the art and it was utterly disgusting. And because of the fact that I relied on my phone to do the art, that is when I realized I sincerely need to take more lessons than this if I want to actually be able to start learning how to draw characters correctly. So after a long time, that's when I have started to actually get used to these things. And as a result, it's like this whole role-playing ordeal. That is when the roleplay detail starts coming in. Because I could be able to make my own fan character, create my own story, and do all these things. But then, something actually hit my mind. However, there has been a lot of ups and there's been a lot of downs. Some of them were mostly ups, some of them were mostly downs. And as the years went by, that's when I came to realize that this motivation, especially with role playing, has took a turn. It took a turn in the middle. It turned out for the greater good, but then it went down to straight up worse in the end. And here's why. Because I started to think to myself, maybe I should make an alternate account to where I could still be myself, but I could play my own character separately. So I used to believe that was an actual good idea until years later it started to hit me. And like I said, I'm still adjusting to this whole ordeal when it comes to talking to people and stuff like that. So do not hold it against me for what I'm about to say next. So when I was making my fan character account somewhat, take note that I honestly only had one alternate account. That was it at first. But then sometime after, I ended up making more and more than I should have. And I wasn't really paying too much attention to the consequences of me doing this until after most of the situations had went down. Because I mainly use those characters just to roleplay and stuff like that. But then, this is where the juicy parts come in. Drama has completely unfolded on those accounts each and every day. And even though that I wasn't really paying too much attention, that's when I actually really had to pump my brakes. And the reason why is because there has been points of time to where people's personal feelings have gotten involved in it. People's feelings have been involved in it. And either I was too oblivious to see that, or I'm just flat out crazy. So, because of the fact that I gotten so attached to role playing, I became detached from reality to the point that I couldn't even distinguish the difference between real people and these characters. Because I was starting to believe that I was in a dimension to where I was no longer myself. I felt like I was undergoing separate identities. Not only did this mess me up mentally, but it also messed me up emotionally. Because there's been a bunch of times to where people have gotten serious about situations, and I was too oblivious to realize that because I became detached from actuality to see other people's feelings are actually real and not just some character's feelings. I was really beginning to see myself as a character and not an actual human being. And honestly, it fucked me up badly. I was starting to believe that I was that actual character every time, being separate characters back to back. And because of the whole ordeal, not only did it give me ideas of how many characters that I would love to have, but at the same time, I still felt like that I was a schizophrenic. That I was a whole schizophrenic or I was somebody with DID. And not only, like I said, messed me up mentally, but a lot of other people's mentality are slowly starting to get messed up as well. A lot of people have gotten severely uncomfortable to the point to where they think that I was downright like playing them for a joke. And don't get me wrong, I care about a lot of people. I really do. I care about a lot of people that I have hung out with since my Google Plus days. But my brain and my mentality was not in its right position. I couldn't even see the fact that I have personally made other people feel uncomfortable about situations like these. But I do not hold it against them, but I hold it against myself, sort of. And I honestly feel guilty towards some of those people that I have made uncomfortable. And here's the thing about me, I don't follow people for popularity, I don't follow people to use them. I really do want to get to know some of those people, unless there comes a time and a place to where boundaries had to be set up. And evidently it had to be. The whole alternate account ordeal did not hit me nearly at all because I wasn't really paying too much attention. But consequences did lie ahead. Because then it draws a lot of suspicion to the eye. I really did not want people to start believing that there were multiple identities. I was starting to believe that I myself had multiple identities. Like I was no longer being myself anymore. I was just basically playing a fictional character or having the mindset of an actual fictional character. And it honestly did hurt me. Because things like that will land someone in serious therapy. And thankfully I didn't have to go to therapy. Because I had to isolate myself from a lot of people. A lot of people to get my mind off of them. Clear my head of ever thinking about them ever again. Because until I am ready to trust myself that I can still be myself, it became sincerely clear to me that I was not stable enough to maintain a bunch of friendships. Like I said, drama has unfolded onto those role-playing accounts. And even though that, because of the fact that I have been involved in most situations, I realized that these situations were pretty pathetic. They were pretty pathetic. I didn't even know exactly the reason why I even chose to argue with them in the first place. Why I got into altercations with those people in the first place. Verbal altercations and stuff like that. But then there also comes a time and a place to where some of those people were completely biased. And I cannot really stand people like that. Especially the people who are one sided on multiple situations. That's my pet peeve about some people. If you choose not to hear from two sides of the story, there is no point of you even talking. But now that I think about this for a second, if I really wanted to roleplay with some of these people, that's when I became to realize that this whole alternate account situation was completely stupid, it was reckless, and it was dangerous. It has sincerely become dangerous even for my own mentality. And then it has gotten to a point to where a lot of people have beginning to think that there are also multiple identities, like I have for a moment. And honestly, it would have fucked over everybody else's mindset. But then, shortly after a while of realizing there are also a lot of people who tend to do the exact same thing. There are a lot of people who tend to do the exact same thing. At least I'm not the only one who makes alternate accounts just for role playing purposes. And I know some people are doing it. The whole point of me making role playing accounts is only for role playing purposes only. At least so that way I can actually try to increase my skills while also setting a boundary at that too. Because after realizing that neither sides that I have been talking to, nor myself nor another person, verified their age before even deciding to roleplay with other people, especially since the fact that unbeknownst to me, there were fetishes involved in these situations, this is honestly cringe to me and other people. I did not realize that the whole entire time that there are some people who actually has a fetish for things, yet alone know what a fetish even is. So with that in mind, that's when I had to start seeing that there are boundaries that should not ever be crossed under any circumstances. There should be no reason whatsoever as to why things like this happen. Like, all of this alternate account ordeal was a good idea to me, but it was also pretty stupid. And if I could go back in the time to where I even tried making the alternate account, I would have slapped myself upside the head with it. Because I could have just simply used my one account and one account only to do that. I shouldn't have to rely on multiple accounts just to roleplay with other people. Especially being my own character too at that. Because consequences will always lie ahead whether someone likes that or not. I had trouble acknowledging the fact that these situations have gotten a little bit too out of hand, especially for my own situation. So for those people that I have made uncomfortable and all that stuff, I do sincerely apologize for that. I did not intend to actually make anybody feel uncomfortable. If I had acknowledged that a long time ago, I would have found any way to make it up to you for it. Because I do not intend to come off creepy to other people. I was simply being a teenage girl. I was a preteen becoming a teenage girl when all of this happened. And I do sincerely apologize for these situations. But as I said, upon finding out that there are some other people who I've actually recognized over the years who makes an account just for the sake of role playing too. At least I'm not the only one who did that. At least I'm not the only one who did this. And even though that some people will call that person out on things like this, I chose not to. Because that would deem me a hypocrite if I were to call somebody out based on the exact same thing that I have done. And the reason why I recognize so many people over the years is basically because of this whole situation. And like I said, I did not intend to come off as creepy to other people. I was just simply being a highly motivated person who wants nothing more than just fun in her life. Because all the negativity that's been happening in my life have taken a toll on me. And I just wanted to get away from that. It was already hard enough making friends as it is in the real world compared to the internet. And I have actually made a lot of friends. But some of those friends were not actually real friends, especially the ones who were completely biased and acting like an immature a-hole for no reason whatsoever. So I can't really say that I have made too many friends on there, but some of y'all have actually gave me motivation to try bettering myself, trying to keep myself from going AWOL on things like these. Because that would deem me a hypocrite if I call somebody out on it too. Like, I knew somebody who personally drove for me, and I kind of figured that he was the one who was playing another character that I was going along with. I just simply went along with it. Because what purpose will that be to call someone out based on something you did the exact same thing of? Because that'll make you look even more stupid to the eye than anything else. So, like, I recognize so many things and so many people, but then at the same time, it feels like I have to stay away from them so I can at least get my thought process together so I won't come off as creepy to other people, especially since some people might end up thinking that I was a sociopath the whole time or whatnot. And I'm not. I'm an actually sincere person, sort of. I was just too motivated into this fun ordeal to actually understand human feelings. To the point that I couldn't even consider myself a human being. I was more of a fictional character. Somebody who practically doesn't exist. And the thing about these situations is that now that I have learned from my mistake time ago, not only did I learn the mistake of not verifying exactly who you are before actually talking to somebody will lead you to one or two places, you being blocked on the spot, or you might end up be facing some prison time. Because for all I have known, I could have been talking to a whole pedophile the whole entire time. And really, I haven't really encountered that many pedophiles over the years. The first ever person who probably is a pedophile was somebody who I talked to on a different account, and I immediately stopped talking to that guy. And then there also became a bunch of times to where some of those people actually showed pictures of their private areas to directly at my face. And that what got me disturbed the most. I have been flashed multiple times by people that I have talked to over the years. And even though that I am slowly getting used to the fact that this is happening, I chose not to press charges against them or report them for doing it. Because what good would that honestly would do for me? I'm not the type of person who's going to automatically report somebody just because they do something as crazy as this. But it was still disturbing to me because I was still practically underage of the sort when people kept on showing me images of their wee area, stuff like that. Like, I honestly did not ask to see that. And if I was that type of person who would immediately react in a type of way, I would have automatically got you reported and banned just for showing pictures like that to the internet. So, as a consequence, and for the greater good, I have decided that anybody who wants to roleplay and stuff like that, you're going to have to verify your age first. If you are at least below the age of 18, boundaries will be set in because I would not be filed for any jail time because y'all chose not to identify yourselves. And there are a lot of people who tends to fake their age just to set somebody up for that manner. And even though that is a clever idea, there are also a lot of innocent people lives that you're playing with too as a result of that as well. Because I will always verify my own age before I allow anybody to talk to me. Especially since if you're under the age of 18. That's a real problem for me. Because then, because of the fact that I'm at that age to where I am now practically a young adult now, I have to take responsibility for a lot of things. But prison time will not be one of them. So for those of you who are still talking to me currently and you are underage, please remind yourself that I will not cross any boundaries under any circumstances, and neither will you. Because both of us will be held responsible if something goes wrong in the process, especially after the fact that I have encountered sexual role-playing situations and got myself in one of them as well. Teenagers will be teenagers, yes, but If anybody got caught doing things like these, you can honestly bet that you will be banned off of social media altogether. You will not be allowed to have any social media until you're practically a grown man or a grown woman. So, like I said, and I'm gonna say this one last time, I did not intend to come off as creepy as to other people. I was just basically being a curious girl who wants to actually try to find people of interest, especially to the point to where I actually want to get to know those people aside from role playing. But because of the fact that I got too caught up in situations like these, I had a hard time distinguishing the differences between the person telling me that this is serious or the character itself telling me that this is serious. And then when Google Plus was about to shut down, that's when all of the days of when I actually tried to get my mind off of this whole incident between me and other people. But then, like I said, the past is not going to stop until you actually understand that what you're doing needs to be out and about. So that way you won't have to worry about taking this to the grave. Because most likely, if you take it to the grave, someone is going to get real suspicious of you in a matter of seconds. So I learned my lesson the hard way. And thankfully, I did the right thing by taking down those alternate accounts. Because those affected me mentally. And I could have actually jeopardized a lot of friendships as a result, which has already had happened for a period of time. And I moved on from those people just so I can try getting my mind straight. And when I'm ready to actually talk to those people again, I will let them know first thing at the hand. But as I said, I'm isolating myself from some people for the sake of myself and sometimes for the sake of them too. I am a selfless person and I did not intend to come off as selfish. So hopefully one day you guys will forgive me if I unintentionally deceived you into believing there are multiple identities. Trust me, my brain has deceived me myself. I deceived myself into believing that there are multiple people inside my body. I'm not really taking control of myself as I should have been. But as I said, hopefully you guys will find it in your heart to forgive me one way or another. And boundaries will be set just so that way both sides can be as comfortable as possible. Because I will not be getting into any trouble and you yourself will not be getting into any kind of trouble either. So if you're practically underage right now and you're trying to talk to me, please set the boundaries.